My body, my choice. For years, it's been the cry of pro-choice advocates, a rebuke of elected officials, particularly congressmen, to stop legislating how a woman can use her own body. It's a simple, catchy line that seems hard to argue with. Of course we should be able to do with our own bodies what we want. No one's gonna respond, well, actually, I want stuffy men in Washington telling me what I can do with my body. Of course not. Now, the reason that this phrase has been so successful in the debate over abortion is because it taps into fundamental values of privacy, personal freedom, and fear of government overstep. Which is why, much to the surprise of many, the phrase was co-opted by those on the complete opposite end of the political spectrum in regards to vaccines. My body, my choice, right? I don't want stuffy men in Washington telling me what I can do with my body either. Advocates tapped into the same values of privacy, personal freedom, and fear of government overstep to support their issue. On the one hand, it's bizarre and hilarious to see the far right and the far left using the exact same logic against each other, each feeling morally superior. In this case, they're literally shouting the exact same words at one another as evidence against the other. What a perfect microcosm of the state of our political discourse today. On the other hand, it's more than a bit concerning. What we're dealing with here is an overly simplified, morally shallow statement. My body, my choice is a short-sighted, selfish, inward-looking approach to the world that disregards one's place in both God and society. At one time, we could take comfort that it was just the issue of a particular agenda, relegated to a small number of misguided people. But as it stretches the political spectrum of late, and will undoubtedly be used to support a third issue before long, one can't help to see it now as a perfect microcosm of the state of our moral development. I believe that this is a big problem, and so I say that we can approach this from 3 different perspectives, addressing 2 present issues and 1 I foresee on the horizon. The first and easiest to address is abortion. It's the OG, where my body, my choice originated. The idea, obviously, is that pregnancy occurs within a woman's uterus, it intimately affects her body, and so she should have the right to do with it what she wants. The problem is that it doesn't deal exclusively with her body. Within her is a living being that, though dependent on her, is not her. Now, we can debate whether it's a human person with rights or it's just a clump of cells, a debate that often goes nowhere, but what can't be denied is this. What is in her uterus is alive, it has human DNA that without interference will become a human being, and it is genetically distinct from the mother. By no real definition can you say that whatever it is the woman's body. She may have a right to do what she wants with her uterus, but there's something, maybe someone else present. My body, my choice does not give someone the right to do harm to something adjacent to or dependent on my body. In this case, it's not mine. And so that's pretty straightforward. For years, pro-choice advocates have used this sort of language, and for years, pro-life advocates have pointed out the obvious flaw. But now there's a new issue, the debate over vaccines. For critics of the COVID vaccine, or really any vaccine or medical measure that treats infectious diseases, the logic of my body, my choice seems to hold up a bit stronger. There's no issue of hurting another being within, it's purely a personal choice to do what we want with our bodies. Right? Yes and no. The primary issue here is in regard to what vaccines do, which is to mitigate the spread of infectious and deadly diseases. There is definitely an element of self-interest involved, not wanting to become infected ourselves, but there is an inherently social element as well. Communities as a whole require a certain level of immunity to prevent the spread of diseases. If, say, 50% of a community doesn't get vaccinated, there's a significant chance that the disease will continue to spread, continue to mutate, and continue to cause harm in future generations. For this reason, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith issued this statement in 2020 regarding the possible COVID vaccines. From the ethical point of view, the morality of vaccination depends not only on the duty to protect one's own health, but also on the duty to pursue the common good. In the absence of other means to stop or even prevent the epidemic, the common good may recommend vaccination, especially to protect the weakest and most exposed. While it could never be absolutely required as a moral imperative, the Catholic Church does not teach that vaccinations are a mere matter of personal choice. There is a moral imperative to care for the common good capable of being fulfilled by vaccines. There may be exceptional situations, sure, but this does not free one from the responsibility to care for others. The Church teaches that those choosing to remain unvaccinated must do everything in their power to avoid the spread of the disease. What's important here is that the defining principle isn't just what's good for my body, it's also a careful consideration of my neighbor's body as well. The default position is to get vaccines for the sake of the whole, only allowing exceptions in rare cases. My body, my choice doesn't stack up because each of us is more than just my body. We are a body together that must be cared for. For most, this is just as easy to understand as the issue with abortion. While some have raised their voices very loudly against vaccines, their numbers remain in the minority. Even instinctively, we get that we are more than just isolated individuals, and so saying my body, my choice is easily dismissed as somewhat laughable. And we could end there. For now, these are the only two issues that I'm aware of where that line is being invoked, and we can see that it's foolish in each case. But I don't believe that it's going to stop. On the horizon is a new issue, one that has been picking up momentum of late, one that will undoubtedly invoke the same logic, and it's the most difficult to refute. I'm speaking, of course, of euthanasia and doctor-assisted suicide. For years, it's existed as a topic of discussion, but largely in an abstract sense, as it's illegal in most places around the world. As the laws in certain places have changed in recent years, however, the issue has become more of a reality. A few weeks ago, I saw something that deeply upset me. Not only had a woman chosen to end her life through medical assistance, she had done it in a church as a part of a crossing over ceremony. With her family and friends there to say goodbye, a minister offered a blessing, and a medical team conducted a procedure that directly led to her death. At a church, with the full consent of the leadership team. The woman in question had been diagnosed with ALS about a year before, and had since lost the ability to speak. Her natural death was imminent as her body was in steady decline with no cure, and so you can see why there might be a lot of people on her side. You can see why a church would see this as a compassionate thing to do, to alleviate suffering. In this case, my body, my choice, makes a lot of sense. What this woman chose to do did not affect anyone else, and it was done for seemingly good reasons. Doesn't she have a right to do with her life what she wants? For Catholics, the answer is unequivocally no. While the desire to alleviate suffering is admirable, and ritualizing one's entry into new life is beautiful, we do it with last rites. The act of taking a life for any reason at any stage can never be morally permissible. As much as it is our body, it is not our choice to do whatever we want with it. We are creations of God, possessing life not due to our own volition, but as a result of God's continued gift. We may say that it's my body, but as far as faith is concerned, it doesn't belong to us. Everything we have and are belongs to God. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean that we must do absolutely everything to keep someone alive. In the case of terminal illnesses, we are not required to accept extraordinary means of prolonging our lives. We can absolutely refuse experimental surgeries, expensive treatments, or medications that leave us feeling horrible. We can even receive palliative care to reduce our pain, even if that indirectly quickens our death. But the thought of denying the ordinary means of maintaining life, water, food, basic medications, or worse yet, receiving medical treatment with the specific purpose of causing harm, is entirely contrary to respecting the dignity of human life. It doesn't honor life, it doesn't show thanks for the gift God has given us. It puts us in control and takes God out of it. For those in the midst of great suffering, this might sound heartless. Why prolong a deteriorating quality of life? Why keep someone alive through suffering? In these situations, I look to the words of C.S. Lewis in his famous book, The Problem with Pain. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. For people of faith, there is something redemptive about suffering. It's an opportunity to identify with the suffering Christ, a chance to be stripped of even our physical and mental faculties to trust completely in God. We would never want to inflict suffering on another, nor would we deny someone palliative care, but we'd also never want to deny them even a single opportunity to experience God either, to feel his mediated presence, to be redeemed through a deep sense of catharsis and kenosis. Who are we to cut God off from what God is doing? What people go through in the final moments of their lives, when they are weak, suffering, and completely out of control, might very well be the most important spiritual moments of their lives. In the interest of comfort, these moments are cut short. I have no doubt that these ceremonies will become more common. While the logic of my body, my choice failed to fully take hold of our society when it came to abortion or vaccines, I have a legitimate fear that it might finally click when it comes to doctor-assisted suicide and euthanasia. And if it does, when does it stop? How do we draw a line? If there's no sense that our lives are sacred, if we believe that it belongs to us and us alone to do with it whatever we want, why would we think that it could be contained to dying old ladies with ALS? With my body, my choice as the defining principle of ethics, it is only a matter of time before perfectly healthy teenagers are making the argument for themselves. Now, you may think that this is a slippery slope argument or that this sign is meant to be taken ironically. But I'm not that naive. It may not happen quickly or immediately, but someone will argue this. Someone will decide that they want to end their life, not passionately or dramatically, not in the privacy of their home with no one around, but ceremoniously and with the law on their side. Currently, I am not aware of any place where this is possible, but it is not too far-fetched to imagine. A society that doesn't value the life of the sick and elderly, that treats the unborn as an inconvenience and thinks little of the common good, is not far from allowing any loss of life. As long as people believe that my body, my choice is a viable ethic, the dignity of life will be at stake. It doesn't make sense for abortion, it doesn't make sense with vaccines, and it doesn't make sense with euthanasia. All life is sacred, is connected to one another, and does not ultimately belong to us. We must learn to treat it like the gift that it is.